Hello, Contrarians devotees. Here we are for another Contrarians preview. We are in the middle of our Twilight journey, so to speak. We did the first Twilight movie on our Patreon channel. This one is for everybody. New Moon is on the main feed, and this is us getting you ready for what you're going to experience, which is us talking about New Moon in very positive ways because New Moon is rotten, according to the tomato meter. You'll find out if we actually agree or not once we get to real talk. But in the first half of the show, it's going to be us uh, singing the praises of New Moon, a sequel that the sequel that all Twilight fans wanted, deserved, earned. We'll see. So, are you ready, Alex?
I guess.
All
If we
right.
have to revisit this, let's do it properly.
All right. I'm going to start with a quote from Betty Jo Tucker from Real Talk Movie Reviews, who says, "For me, nothing in New Moon matches the visual excitement of the vampire baseball game in Twilight." Now, I'm on the record
Dude,
as being
that's
a fan of that sequence.
it's so funny you say that. I have a friend of mine who I follow on Letterboxd, and his review of the first Twilight, I think he gives it I don't know what the rating he gave it was, but the review was the baseball scene has its merits, and then his review of New Moon is significantly less, and it says no baseball scene.
I think that if I wanted to make the argument to explain this, is that Twilight is about falling in love, and there's the excitement of falling in love, maybe even falling in love for the first time. Whereas New
Mhm.
Moon is about heartbreak and the rebound. So yeah, you're not gonna have the acceleration of that baseball scene. That would be out of place. Instead, what you have is that sequence where Bella's just sitting there and the camera's spinning as time goes by. Uh, that captures the feeling of being dumped the same way that the baseball sequence captures the feeling of falling in love. So I would say different movies, different themes. You just kind of have to learn
And
that
without
it's not the
giving too
same.
much away of the episode itself, Julio and I think there's something to that of New Moon is a movie that there's way less of a Cullen presence, be it
Yeah,
baseball or just generally speaking. And I
that's true
think
too.
we speak to that.
Next, Tim Brayton from Antagony and Ecstasy says, boring. But I'll say this about New Moon. It appears to have been made by people more familiar with the craft of cinema than Twilight was. Alex, shots fired. is this is this better filmmaking than the filmmaking found in Twilight?
I think there's a very interesting portion of our discussion about this, about the filmmaking perspective, and about how Twilight was crafted almost entirely from a female perspective versus this one, which was almost entirely from a male perspective, and how we found one of those worked better than the other. That's a hard one to say because there were interesting things they did visually for the original one versus this. I think that's a really good review to bring up because we talk kind of at length about our opinions on the first versus the second from a purely filmmaking perspective in the episode itself.
Yeah, I don't think I bring it up in the episode, but I would like to have seen the that cathedral climax shot by Catherine Harwick. Like, how much would it be different from what we got from Chris White's? Also, would she focus on Jacob being shirtless so much during the movie, or would she find something
the
else for him to do?
the female gaze, as
Yeah.
it were.
All right. Next, Brandon Judel from Culture Catch says, seldom has a film disparaged the state of virginity as much as has this lethargically paced, often inane, paean to thwarted post-pubescent horniness. Believe me, chastity can be fun. Ask Doris Day.
Is that from like Mormon Daily?
Culture Catch.
Culture Catch.
I, I don't know that I felt that this movie was some sort of I don't know, ode to chastity in
No, it's
one way
about
or the other.
vampires and werewolves, and
Yeah, actually, I guess
uh,
no. His point is that it's not an ode to chastity. It's his point is that it disparages chastity, but still, I nobody's having sex in this movie. I mean, don't get me
but
wrong. If there was a good movie out there about a vampire and a woman, and somehow that movie found a way to celebrate chastity. I'll be interested to see how they did it, but it's not the first thing that comes to mind. So some
Hmm.
dude that goes to watch a teen movie about vampires and then complains that everybody's horny for each other, that just seems disingenuous. Like he went in to complain.
Yeah.
It was like Bram Stoker's Dracula. Oh, they're not celebrating virginity in this one either. Well, no shit. That's just how it goes.
Just like the poster for this movie. If you saw the poster and then you went in to bitch about how horny everybody is, it's just like, all right, dude, you were a man on a mission going into that.
And we're going to close the quotes with Fred Topple from Can Magazine, who says, "It never feels as profound as Highlander. And rest assured, Highlander is not my high water mark for metaphorical drama." That's such a weird reference. Have you seen Highlander? How do you feel about Highlander?
Yeah, I saw it when I was younger. It's like embedded in my mind. I always think of Talladega Nights, where Ricky Bobby tells Sacha Baron Cohen, it's like, "You never seen Highlander? It won the Academy Award for Best Picture ever," or he says something like that.
Oh,
But
that's a lie.
yeah, that's the joke. Have you ever seen Talladega Nights? Ricky Bobby's an idiot. That's
Yes.
the okay. Um, that is just such a weird comparison to make. And again, that's like someone in a position of like having a platform that they just watched Highlander the week they went to see this movie, and they're like, this is what popped into my mind like immediately, but I'm going to present it as though it's like a normal thought process that people would go through.
All right. What do you have as far as trivia, Alex?
I mentioned this on the episode, but the film's American premiere was held on November 16th of 2009, which in the lunar cycle was on a new moon.
Went all out.
If there's a wagon you're going to hit yourself to, Twilight ain't a bad one, because on a $50 million budget, we brought home $710 million on this bad boy. Ridiculous feat for a movie that was a year after its predecessor. When Michael Sheen, Wesley Snipes, was cast as Aro, he had no clue who the character is nor what the characteristics were. He learned much. He learned as much as he could, including the character's backstory from his daughter Lily, who is a fan of the series. And in the episode we talk about how clearly the level of enjoyment that Michael Sheen is having with this. So that's kind of funny that it came from that place.
Yeah, love the movie, hate the movie. You can't deny that Michael Sheen is having fun, and it's kind of infectious.
You know, longtime listeners will know I always give credit to Mission Impossible 2 as being like one of the last movies that a soundtrack was part of its presentation and marketing. And while I don't remember that being the case, because we were definitely in we were well into the time of phasing out CDs and cassettes and physical media. So it was way more internet based. But to this movie's credit, every song that appears in the film and on the soundtrack is original and written specifically for this movie. And there's some heavy hitters in this, man. Like the
So much
Killers, dude, the
work.
fucking song for the that that's what it's what makes it special. Lastly, what I want to bring to the table, because it is of extreme significance, despite the fact that it kind of hurts me in my soul. Twilight New Moon broke the record for the biggest one-day gross in U.S. history when they grossed $72.7 million. So more to come in the overall thoughts and history of the Twilight franchise, because we have uh, our thoughts on Eclipse coming up for our patrons, and then following that, Julio, we're going to combine the Breaking Dawn two-parter into one, which that's likely going to be a colossal episode.
It's the way it should have been, though. There's no need. Let's stop that practice of breaking things in two when they're only meant to be one part.
The Hobbit was one book that got 3 3-hour movies, so
Yeah, that's
yeah.
it's not necessary. It's just commit. I dislike long movies, probably not as much as Alex does, but I've definitely soured on them, and just the idea of a long movie is preferable to a movie that's split in two. I just I don't like it. And so we're not gonna do it for this podcast. Breaking Dawn will be just one. But our next episode on the main feed is actually something else, something completely different. It comes from Patron Chas, and he's giving us a movie called Wake in Fright, which was from 1971, and it's fresh. That's all we know right now. It has Dr. Loomis in it, and
Donald Pleasance, yeah.
I guess it's supposed to be good. We'll find out when we get there. But until then, enjoy our New Moon episode and hit us up with your comments, your questions. If you love Twilight, if you hate Twilight, we're here to hear you and maybe make fun of you, maybe agree with you. We'll see. But until then, thank you for checking out the podcast and this video and everything else. Adios.
Take care.